And it seems like he's not really willing to take much responsibility for the fact that what he's done in terms of donations.
Did Keir Starmer's Labour Party just get caught with their hand in the EU cookie jar? A £30,000 donation has raised eyebrows and set off alarm bells at the Electoral Commission. But this isn't just about money. It's about Brexit, political influence, and the very foundations of British democracy. Ready to dive into the murky world of party finances? The Fabian Society, a think tank with deep roots in Labour Party history, has long been seen as a bastion of progressive thought. But recent revelations have cast a shadow over its reputation, raising questions about its true role in British politics. Is it really just an innocent hub for policy discussions, or has it become a Trojan horse for EU influence? The £30,000 donation from the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, FEPS, to the Fabian Society has set off alarm bells.
That Keir Starmer, for all his fanfare about being, moralistic, sticking to the rules, all the while, the optics are he's taking hundreds of grands in donations, 20 grand to buy himself some new suits and some new glasses.
This isn't just pocket change we're talking about. It's a significant sum that could potentially shape policy directions. And let's not forget, FEPS is based in Brussels and has strong ties to the EU. So why are they funneling money into a British think tank? To understand the implications, we need to look at the Fabian Society's role in shaping Labour policy. For decades, this organisation has been a breeding ground for Labour ideas and future leaders. Many of the party's most influential figures have passed through its ranks. But with this EU-linked donation, we have to ask, whose interests are really being served here? The Fabian Society claims to be an independent organisation dedicated to promoting progressive policies. But how can we reconcile this with accepting money from an EU-backed foundation? It's like a vegetarian society taking sponsorship from a butcher's shop. Something doesn't quite add up. This financial link raises serious questions about the society's independence. Are we seeing a subtle form of foreign influence on British politics? The Fabian Society has always been closely aligned with Labour, but now it seems they might be aligned with Brussels too. It's a connection that should make every British voter sit up and take notice. But the plot thickens when we consider Labour's evolving stance on Brexit. Keir Starmer has been trying to distance the party from its previous pro-Remain position, claiming Labour has moved on from the Brexit debate. Yet here we have a key Labour think tank accepting money from an EU-linked organisation.
Being all about ethics and honesty would be embroiled in a scandal effectively about dodgy donations.
The Office of Budget Responsibility would have allowed that information to go to the opposition.
It's like watching a magic trick. Now you see the EU connection, now you don't. The £30,000 donation might be just the tip of the iceberg. If the Fabian Society is willing to accept this sum, what other EU-linked funding might be flowing into Labour-affiliated organisations? And more importantly, what kind of influence does this money buy? This isn't just about following the money, it's about following the ideas. The Fabian Society has always prided itself on being a thought leader. But whose thoughts are they really leading? Are we seeing British policy shaped by British interests? Or is there a hidden hand guiding things from across the channel? The Electoral Commission's interest in this matter shows just how serious these questions are. If rules have been broken, it could have far-reaching consequences for Labour and for British democracy as a whole. It's a reminder that in politics, money talks, and sometimes it speaks with a foreign accent. The Electoral Commission's interest in the Fabian Society's funding is just the beginning of this political labyrinth. To truly understand the scope of this controversy, we need to follow the money trail from Brussels to Westminster. It's a journey that raises more questions than answers and could potentially redefine Labour's relationship with the EU.
This early on, within sort of 3 months of becoming Prime Minister. So I think it's probably understandable that activists are feeling a little bit cheesed off and make a confused position about who Labour are trying to sell themselves to at the moment, because their entire narrative is about it's to help working people.
Let's start with the £30,000 donation from the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, FEPS, to the Fabian Society. On the surface, it might seem like a simple transaction between like-minded organizations, but dig a little deeper and you'll find a web of connections that could make even the most seasoned political observer raise an eyebrow. FEPS, based in Brussels, is no ordinary think tank. It's an EU-backed organization with close ties to the European Parliament. The fact that they're funneling money into a British political think tank should set off alarm bells. Are we witnessing a secret pipeline of EU influence into British politics? The legality of this donation is murky at best. Under UK electoral laws, donations exceeding £500 to political associations must come from permissible sources. Any donations over £11,180 must be reported to the Electoral Commission. The £30,000 in question clearly exceeds both these thresholds. But the real kicker, EU regulations prohibit political foundations receiving EU funding from donating to any party's electioneering funds.
Maybe even a bit missold about precisely who Keir Starmer has portrayed himself as for the past few years.
And go to those areas and say, listen, we've got to start afresh. This has got to be about this country. We seem to be helping anybody and everybody.
So we have a situation where a donation potentially violates both EU and UK regulations. It's like watching a game of political chess where both players are trying to bend the rules without getting caught. But in this case, it's not just a game. It's the integrity of British democracy at stake. The Electoral Commission has acknowledged the situation as a potential regulatory concern. That's bureaucrat speak for something smells fishy, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. They're reviewing the information regarding the Fabian Society and its funding sources. If rules have been broken, Labour could find itself in hot water. But here's the million-pound question. Is this an isolated incident or part of a larger pattern? The Fabian Society isn't just any think tank. It's deeply embedded in Labour's policy-making machinery. Many of Labour's brightest stars have passed through its ranks. If it's compromised by EU influence, what does that mean for the party as a whole?
Quick to point the finger at any Tory MP who did anything even, an ounce outside the rules, and yet here we are now.
They do not see the Labour Party based in Islington or Lord Alley's penthouse as the party of the working man or woman.
Keir Starmer has been trying to distance Labour from its previous pro-Remain stance, claiming the party has moved on from Brexit. But this financial connection suggests otherwise. Is Starmer's move on from Brexit message just a smokescreen for continued EU alignment? The implications of this scandal could be far-reaching. If Labour is found to have benefited from illegal donations, it could face hefty fines and a serious blow to its credibility. More importantly, it could shatter public trust in a party that's positioning itself as the next government. The £30,000 donation scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Labour's relationship with EU-backed organisations runs deeper than most people realise, raising serious questions about the party's true intentions regarding Brexit and Britain's future relationship with Europe. Keir Starmer may claim that Labour has moved on from Brexit, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Starmer's own history with the EU is worth examining. Before becoming Labour leader, he served as Director of Public Prosecutions and Head of the Crown Prosecution Service. roles that involved significant interaction with EU law. During the Brexit referendum, Starmer was a vocal Remain supporter, passionately advocating for the UK to stay in the EU. He emphasized the benefits of EU membership for the UK economy and society, painting a picture of doom and gloom if Britain were to leave.
Like they're at the back of the queue, that they don't break the law, they pay their taxes, they get no help from anybody. But he doesn't seem to even understand. This is what I would say to him, right? The optics, Dee, are so appalling.
Fast forward to today, and we see a very different Keir Starmer. As Labour leader, he's attempted to distance himself from his pro-EU past, focusing instead on uniting the party and appealing to a broader electorate. But this apparent U-turn has led to accusations of inconsistency. Is Starmer genuinely committed to respecting the Brexit vote? Or is this just a political charade to win over Leave voters? The Labour Party's connections to EU-affiliated organisations extend beyond just Starmer. Many prominent Labour figures have strong EU ties, and their influence on party policy cannot be ignored. Take, for example, the number of Labour MPs who have worked in Brussels or have close relationships with EU institutions. These connections raise questions about whether Labour's policy decisions are truly in Britain's best interests, or if they're being influenced by a desire to maintain close ties with the EU. Labour's balancing act between its traditional base and pro-EU supporters has created a policy fog that's hard to penetrate. On one hand, they claim to accept Brexit as a fait accompli. On the other, they continue to maintain close relationships with EU-affiliated organisations and accept funding from EU-backed think tanks. This doublespeak leaves both Leave and Remain voters unsure of Labour's true position. The £30,000 donation from the Foundation for European Progressive Studies to the Fabian Society isn't just a financial transaction, it's a potential smoking gun. This EU-backed organisation, funneling money into a British political think tank, raises serious questions about Labour's true allegiances. Are we witnessing a secret pipeline of Brussels influence seeping into Westminster? More importantly, what other EU-linked funding sources might be lurking in Labour's financial records? If this donation has come to light, it's not unreasonable to suspect there might be more. The Electoral Commission's investigation could uncover a web of financial connections that paint a very different picture of Labour's relationship with the EU than the one Starmer has been presenting to the public. The implications of this controversy extend far beyond party politics. It strikes at the heart of British democracy and sovereignty. If a major political party is found to be accepting illegal donations from EU-backed organisations, it could undermine public trust in the entire political system. It also raises questions about foreign influence in British politics, a sensitive topic in the post-Brexit landscape. As we peel back the layers of Labour's EU connections, we're left with a startling realisation. The £30,000 donation might be just the beginning. The untold story of backroom deals and whispered promises could hold the key to unravelling this political mystery. What secret agreements might Keir Starmer have made during his pro-EU days that are now coming back to haunt him?
And it seems like he's not really willing to take much responsibility for the fact that what he's done in terms of donations, goal really for Labour to just carry on and carry on and carry on without any kind of one person leading.
Well, they're not doing a very good job. They don't need to be attacked.
The implications of this funding scandal stretch far beyond the corridors of Westminster. It threatens to undermine the very foundations of British democracy and sovereignty. In the wake of Brexit, public opinion on EU influence in UK politics has been notably critical. Many voters express deep concerns about foreign funding, and its potential to erode national sovereignty and democratic integrity. This scandal taps into that underlying skepticism, igniting a firestorm of debate about the true extent of EU involvement in UK political affairs. Historically, foreign funding scandals have led to significant political fallout in various countries. They often result in a dramatic decrease in public trust in political institutions and trigger calls for stricter regulations on political donations. The Labour Party now finds itself walking a tightrope, trying to maintain its credibility while facing accusations of impropriety. The damage to public trust could be severe and long-lasting, potentially reshaping the political landscape for years to come. But the rabbit hole of EU funding might go deeper than anyone imagines. Tomorrow's breakthrough could reveal a shocking network of financial ties that dwarf this initial scandal. Just how extensive are Labour's connections to EU-backed organisations? The answer to this question could have far-reaching consequences for both the party and British politics as a whole. The concept of national sovereignty takes on new significance in the context of these international political networks. In a post-Brexit world, many voters believed they were reclaiming control over British affairs. This scandal challenges that notion, suggesting that EU influence might still be pervasive, albeit in more subtle forms. It raises uncomfortable questions about the true nature of Britain's relationship with Europe and the extent to which foreign entities can shape domestic politics. For Labour and Keir Starmer, the stakes couldn't be higher. This scandal threatens to damage not only the party's credibility, but also its electoral chances. Voters may perceive Labour as being too closely aligned with EU interests, undermining its position as a credible alternative to the Conservative Party. The perception of being in Brussels' pocket could be politically toxic, especially in areas that voted strongly for Brexit. As the Electoral Commission's investigation looms, Labour finds itself at a crossroads. The party must navigate a precarious path between transparency and damage control. How they handle this crisis could determine their political fate for years to come. Will they come clean about the full extent of their EU connections, or will they attempt to downplay the significance of the scandal? The coming weeks and months promise to be a roller coaster of revelations, denials, and political maneuvering. As more information comes to light, the British public will be forced to grapple with difficult questions about the nature of their democracy and the influence of foreign entities on their political system. The £30,000 donation scandal has blown the lid off Labour's EU connections, leaving Keir Starmer in a precarious position. As the Electoral Commission considers launching an investigation, the coming weeks could reshape British politics and public trust. The Conservative Party has already pounced on this revelation, with co-chairman Nigel Huddleston labelling the funding arrangement as scandalous and demanding Labour reject future EU-affiliated funding. This controversy goes beyond party politics, striking at the heart of Britain's post-Brexit identity. The public must now grapple with uncomfortable questions about foreign influence and the true nature of Labour's relationship with Brussels. As this story unfolds, one thing is clear: transparency in political funding is no longer a luxury, but a necessity for preserving the integrity of British democracy.